Let's start with our first news. Islam Makhachev gave his thoughts on Conor's comeback and reacted with a surprisingly positive tone, saying Conor's return is good for the sport because of the attention and star power he brings. He also gave his prediction for the fight, suggesting that Max Holloway could beat Conor in their upcoming clash. Islam confirmed he is ready to return in August, although his opponent is still unknown. This has excited MMA fans, as the second half of 2026 is shaping up to be stacked with major returns and fights. Ilya and Alex Pereira are expected in June, Conor in July, and Islam Makhachev in August. Fans are calling this one of the most chaotic schedules in recent UFC history. Another major talking point is Conor's activity in the UFC anti-doping program, with reports showing he has already been tested 12 times in 2026, even though it is still May. For comparison, Merab finished 2025 as the most tested fighter with 14 total tests. After years of uncertainty, fans now believe Conor might truly be back for real. In the interview, Islam said it is good for the sport and that Conor still has a tough challenge ahead against Max Holloway. He then added that he is heading back to training camp and expects to be ready by August, with multiple contenders still in the mix. But no clear title fight decision has been made yet. The division remains wide open, and fans are waiting for official announcements as UFC prepares for a massive summer schedule filled with high-stakes fights and unpredictable outcomes. With Conor's comeback, Islam's return, and Ilya's rising dominance, the UFC landscape is shifting quickly, and every division now feels more competitive than ever before, heading into a crucial period right now. Move on to another news at the start. Arman Tsarukyan leaks Dana White's plans for his next fight, revealing what he believes are the UFC's upcoming decisions. He claims that he will be fighting for the BMF title in September against Charles Oliveira in a major showdown planned for Los Angeles. He also stated that he is still serving as a backup fighter for Tapodia and G, ready to step in if anything changes. According to Arman, this role remains active, meaning he could be called in at any moment if an injury or withdrawal happens. He further hinted that there is a strong possibility he might face Charles Oliveira again, adding that discussions are still ongoing behind the scenes. The revelation has sparked major discussion among fans, especially with Arman positioning himself for another high-stakes opportunity in the lightweight division. Sources suggest that UFC leadership is considering multiple scenarios for the next title picture, with September being a key target month. Arman also emphasized that staying ready has been his main focus, as opportunities at the top level can change instantly in the UFC. The situation now places him in a strong position, with potential fights against elite opponents still being discussed within the organization. With all of this unfolding, fans are closely watching to see whether the rumored September fight becomes officially confirmed by UFC executives. We move forward as Arman continues to position himself for a major opportunity in one of the most competitive divisions in MMA. His comments also reflect a broader shift in the division, where fighters are constantly adjusting to sudden changes in matchmaking and title plans. Arman remains confident that staying active and ready will eventually lead him to another shot at gold, regardless of who stands in his way. With negotiations still developing behind the scenes, the UFC landscape continues to shift rapidly as fighters wait for official confirmation on their next assignments and title opportunities. And Arman's situation remains one of the most closely followed stories in the lightweight division, especially given his potential involvement in both title fights and backup roles, keeping him directly connected to multiple high-profile events scheduled for the coming months, while fans continue to speculate whether the rumored matchup in September will finally materialize and how it could reshape the division's direction heading into a packed end-of-year schedule in the UFC Worldwide UFC stage. Move on to another news at the start. Dustin Poirier explains why he does not believe Conor will stand and trade with Max Holloway if Max points down in the final moments of a fight. Dustin addressed the criticism he received after his recent bout with Max Holloway, where Max pointed down and Dustin initially engaged in striking exchanges for a few seconds before choosing to clinch instead. He reflected on how dangerous Max becomes in those closing stages and why trading in that moment is extremely risky. Dustin was asked whether Conor would stay in the pocket if a similar situation happened late in a fight, especially if Max Holloway pointed down in the final seconds. He responded that most people are already assuming the fight will not even reach 5 rounds, questioning the likelihood of it going the distance. He added that if the fight somehow reaches the championship rounds and there is a point down moment in the last 10 seconds, he does not believe Conor will be in the physical condition to engage in a wild exchange with Max Holloway at that stage. He emphasized how fast and powerful Max remains even at the end of a fight, noting that his output does not slow down, but instead increases as the rounds progress. Dustin explained that Max is extremely technical in chaotic exchanges and is not just throwing wild punches, but calculated volume with real timing and precision. He recalled his own experience in his retirement fight, admitting that even he chose to clinch in the final seconds rather than risk getting caught clean by Max Holloway. He mentioned how strange it felt to be in that position, especially with high-profile attention around the moment, yet still prioritizing survival over entertainment. Dustin also highlighted how Max maintains elite output in rounds 4 and 5, making him one of the most dangerous fighters late in fights. He stated that Conor's style may struggle against that sustained pressure because Max builds momentum instead of fading. According to Dustin, Max's point-down gesture is not for show, but a real invitation to trade. And if an opponent engages, he will open up with high-volume combinations and dangerous aggression, making it a true test of timing, durability, and decision-making under pressure. This analysis continues to shape expectations for their potential future matchup inside the UFC world stage. Move on to another news at the start. Dan Hardy reveals the real reason Khamzat Chimaev lost to Sean Strickland. He suggested the issue may have started long before fight night, explaining that Khamzat may have allowed himself to become too big for the middleweight division and left the weight cut too late. According to Hardy, that mistake can completely drain a fighter at the elite level. He explained that carrying too much size into camp and then forcing a brutal cut at the end can heavily affect cardio, explosiveness, and overall performance inside the cage. Considering how physically imposing Khamzat looked leading into the fight, Hardy believes it played a major role in why he did not look like himself against Strickland. Despite the setback, Khamzat is not moving on quietly, already calling for a rematch and insisting the result does not reflect the better fighter. Things escalated further after he posted and later deleted a controversial tweet suggesting he lost the decision because he is not American, sparking backlash online. Hardy also broke down the stylistic problems Khamzat faced, noting that Strickland's patient and awkward rhythm is designed to frustrate opponents and force mistakes. He described Strickland as a fighter who waits, makes you go first, and then leans away, making clean shots extremely difficult to land. Hardy compared the style to fighting an inflatable punch bag, where targets drift just out of range. He added that frustration is exactly what Strickland wants because it leads to overreaching and missed opportunities. According to Hardy, Strickland's confidence and patience make him one of the most difficult opponents in the division, especially for aggressive fighters who rely on pressure and timing. The analysis suggests that Khamzat's struggles were not just tactical, but also physical, influenced by weight management issues and the psychological pressure of fighting such an elusive opponent in a high-stakes matchup. Hardy further emphasized that at elite level, even small weight cut errors multiply under pressure, especially when facing a counter-striker like Strickland, who thrives in slow-tempo exchanges. He noted that Khamzat's early aggression may have cost him energy reserves, forcing him into more hesitant exchanges as rounds progressed. This combination of fatigue and tactical frustration created a scenario where Strickland could control range and timing with ease, ultimately shaping the outcome of the fight. This analysis continues to shape fan discussion worldwide today. Move on to another news at the start. Ilia Topuria's sparring session with Merab Dvalishvili has reportedly leaked, immediately sparking major discussion across the MMA community. In the footage and related reports, Merab reflected on their training exchanges and admitted he was unable to take Ilia down at all, praising his defensive wrestling as impossible to break, and highlighting how strong and controlled he felt in grappling situations. This added even more credibility to Ilia's rapidly growing reputation as a complete mixed martial artist. Adding fuel to the spotlight, Ilia also posted a striking and controversial message online, sharing a funeral-themed visual featuring images of his last 4 opponents alongside a caption referencing the White House, a white rose, and a nap in its gardens, aimed directly at Justin Gaethje as a clear psychological message ahead of their buildup. Meanwhile, debates continued around Ilia's resume and how it should be evaluated, with analysts discussing whether his rise is being underrated or overanalyzed, depending on perspective. Daniel Cormier pushed back strongly against critics who questioned Ilia's achievements, defending his rapid ascent and elite-level performances. In contrast, Josh Thompson argued that Ilia's resume might be slightly tainted, depending on context, pointing out that Volk had recently come off a knockout loss to Islam. Max Holloway had moved between weight classes and dealt with tough cuts affecting durability, and Charles Oliveira was also in a physically declining stage of his career. However, Cormier dismissed that line of thinking, calling it a classic attempt to find flaws where there are none. He emphasized that despite any external arguments, Ilya still managed to defeat two of the greatest featherweight champions of all time back-to-back, which speaks for itself at the highest level. Cormier stressed that elite victories cannot simply be reduced by context when the results clearly show dominance in execution and timing. The discussion highlighted a growing divide between analysts who focus on circumstances and those who prioritize results inside the cage. Ilya himself has stated in recent interviews that he does not intend to rely heavily on wrestling against Justin Gaethje, instead aiming to secure a highlight reel finish and continue building his reputation as one of the most dangerous finishers in the sport. With sparring leaks, online messages, and analyst debates all combining, Ilya remains at the center of one of the most talked about rising star narratives in modern MMA today. Move on to another news at the start. Arman Tsarukyan has hinted at a massive potential rematch against Charles Oliveira for the BMF title in September, sparking major debate across the MMA community. Arman previously fought Charles at UFC 300, where he secured a split decision victory in a closely contested battle. Now, new comments from Arman suggest that the UFC may be considering running it back on an even bigger stage in Los Angeles, with a title attached to the matchup. During a recent conversation, Arman discussed his next steps and stated that his next fight is expected to be a title fight, likely scheduled for September. When asked about the location, he mentioned Los Angeles, which immediately added more credibility to the speculation surrounding the event. He also revealed that he could still serve as a backup fighter for the White House card, stepping in if any main event competitor pulls out due to injury or other issues. This dual role has kept him directly involved in multiple high-profile plans heading into 2026. Arman further emphasized that nothing is fully locked in yet, but confirmed that discussions are ongoing and opportunities are actively being explored behind the scenes. At one point, he hinted that he might even face Charles Oliveira again, reinforcing the possibility of a rematch that fans have been discussing since their first encounter. The conversation also touched on hypothetical matchups against other top heavyweights and champions, where Arman reacted candidly about the size difference, acknowledging the extreme challenge those fights would present. He admitted that certain opponents would be nearly impossible to deal with physically, highlighting just how dangerous the upper divisions can be. Despite the uncertainty, Arman remains confident that his position in the division continues to grow, with major opportunities potentially on the horizon. The idea of a BMF title fight in September has only added more excitement, as fans speculate about whether the UFC will officially confirm the matchup. With multiple moving parts including backup duties, rematch talks, and title implications, Arman finds himself at the center of one of the most unpredictable and closely watched situations in the lightweight division, where every announcement could completely change the landscape of upcoming events and championship direction in the UFC world stage today. Move on to another news at the start. Arman Tsarukyan has shared his thoughts on a potential rematch between Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland, and he believes Khamzat can win easily if he approaches the fight with the right mindset. Arman explained that the key factor will be staying calm and not getting emotional inside the cage. He suggested that if Khamzat remains composed and fights smart, the outcome would be straightforward in his favor. However, he warned that if Khamzat becomes too aggressive early, chasing a knockout or rushing for a submission, he could end up draining his own energy too quickly. According to Arman, emotional fighting can severely impact endurance at the elite level, especially in a long 25-minute fight where pacing is critical. Arman broke down how Sean Strickland typically fights, explaining that he often starts slow and even gives away the first 2 rounds while absorbing pressure and reading his opponent. He described how Strickland uses those early rounds to force opponents to overextend and burn energy. From the 3rd round onward, Arman says Strickland begins to increase his output, using steady jabs and pressure while maintaining a very defensive and disciplined style. He emphasized that Strickland does not move much, but relies on timing, guard control, and consistent volume to slowly take over the fight. This pattern, according to Arman, is what allows him to win many of his fights by decision. Arman also stressed that Khamzat's corner will play a crucial role in keeping him disciplined and emotionally controlled. He said they are preparing specifically to make sure Khamzat does not get dragged into unnecessary brawls or emotional exchanges, especially given the history of verbal tension between the fighters. Arman pointed out that the buildup between Khamzat and Strickland has included a lot of trash talk, making emotional control even more important on fight night. He concluded that while both fighters are extremely dangerous, the fight will ultimately come down to discipline, patience, and fight IQ, rather than pure aggression. Arman believes that if Khamzat follows the correct game plan, he has all the tools to dominate the rematch. But any lapse in control could completely change the outcome once again inside the UFC octagon, where strategy often decides everything at the highest level of competition today.